Everybody, this is the Undercurrent. This is Kevin Leatherberg, and we've got Tony. We also have a guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Josh Butterfly. I'm with the Prayer Warriors Tribal Council, and I represent the incarcerated individuals here in Montana and their families. I'm Leroy, and we're inside of the same group. You know, I'm part of this with inside of the prison, everything that's going on, and how it affects me with inside of the community and all that, getting out and all that. Being with inside the corrections for the last 30 years, inside the prison, and everything that's been going on. It's been pretty difficult for me.
Well, thanks for coming on, and you have a very interesting story to tell us. Well, you have a lot of interesting stories. We were talking before the show, and we've got a lot to cover, and got a short time to do it. And again, if we have to revisit this, we will. We'll have another one, but let's just start from the top.
Yeah, I think let's just start with describing what the Indian Welfare Fund is first, like why that came about and what it's intended for.
Okay, so it's the Inmate Welfare Fund, and what this is it's a trust fund that's paid into by the incarcerated population and their families through canteen, through the phone system, and through visiting when it was available, and they use the fines within the internal disciplinary system to generate funds into this fund. And what this fund is supposed to be utilized for is things inside the prison that would help the guys out with like rehabilitation and, certain things like that. But the big thing that it was designed to do was help people when they return to the communities after a term of incarceration with housing, with clothes, with a phone, just the basic necessities that they need. And so, that's how this fund was established. And that was the impression by the DOC, the Department of Corrections, and what's his name, the governor back then, Brian Schweitzer, when they 2011 when they revised the IWF policy. So
so by what it sounds like that it's not funded at all by taxpayer dollars. It's actually funded by sort of the inmates themselves, right?
Yes, and see the perfect example would be the Eloise Cabell. It's the same thing. The natives were robbed out of their royalties, and so it's the same thing. There was a trust fund that was paid into, and the guys aren't benefiting. They're only given a bus ticket and a meal ticket, and that's all they're getting when they get out. And they're saying the Department of Corrections is basically saying have a good life. But what we discovered is that there's $6 million of the Eloise Cabell that went into the IWF fund, and the native population that paid into that never benefited when they returned to the communities after incarceration.
Can you describe the Eloise Cabell case or situation?
So what the Eloise Cabell case was, it was a case where the Department of Interior was found in violation of royalties for oil and land, and they weren't providing pennies on a dollar. And these families were going into poverty. They had these oil pumps on their land, and they were extracting the oil out of their land, and they were only giving them like $70 while they would take home $5,000, out of that. And that's what happened with the Eloise Cabell. Same thing as the native population paid into it, but they never benefited like they were supposed to, and that money can't be accounted for. So that's how that was won. It was a 3.4 billion lawsuit. 1.6 billion went to education and stuff like that, and then 1.5 billion went to the IIM account holders, and that was us. And so, and at that time they distributed. It was at first it was going to be 1,000, but then they went and negotiated, and it was 1,500 that everybody got out of the Blackfeet and whoever had an IIM account. So, yeah, and that was paid 2000.
Okay, so over 10 years, you're saying?
Yeah.
So you're saying that 6 million was given to the IWF. Was that 6 million across those 10 years? So about 600,000
In
to
that
the
one,
IWF.
It wasn't a 10-year process. It was within the a couple months that this 6 million went into the IWF when they started to distribute the money in 2014. So there was 4,000, I believe, uh, natives, but there was more. But what we can account based on the numbers that the DOC has of the Native Americans incarcerated, we calculated that it was $6 million of the Eloise Cabell that went into that to that.
So, how much does the fund usually intake? Do you know, like, how much revenue that it has per year, just based off of the fine system and everything else?
About 700,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a substantial amount. So, and the increased population, how they have it, like the overcrowding, I believe it would be probably about, at this time, about 850,000 in revenue each year that they make out of it based on the phone systems and canteen and the
So, and
fund.
what you're saying is that that money, in addition to that 6 million that was injected from the Eloise Cabell case, that isn't being used appropriately by the stewards of that money, which would be our, I guess, who would that be? So, is that our sheriff's office, and
That would be
or is it
uh,
like?
Yeah, so Jesse Slaughter would be one of them that here at the Cascade County Detention Center, and Josh Racky, they had control of that because it was also part of the people that were coming from the pre-release when their monies would be transferred to the Cascade County Detention Center. So that was a kind of a thing that people would kind of leave out is, when you would go up to the from the pre-release to the jail, that your money would follow you and they would take a portion of that and put it into the IWF. And, so by the time you go up there, even if it's for a few days, you took a pretty good hit. But the Department of Corrections director, deputy director, and so those are the ones that are behind it. Cynthia Wolkin, our current director, Brian Gukin, and Natalie, she's the chief financial officer that's in charge of it. But the people that really control it is the parole board and the IPPOs. They're the ones that can say where the money goes and how much people get, and that would be here out of Great Falls.
So,
So
what are you? Go ahead, Kevin.
well, I was looking up some numbers that said for Montana's incarcerations of natives, and Native Americans make up 6.5 to 7% of the state's population, but constitute approximately 20 to 25% of the state prison population. That's 21% males in Montana, and women is around 37 of females in state prisons in Montana. So I mean, I'm trying to get my head around the vastness of what this looks like, and not just for our county, right?
Yep.
This is across the board. So looking at those simple numbers, which anybody can go and look, what do you say to those who are not being, or those who are handling this? And is this almost a systemic against Native Americans in Montana? Or is this appropriated to every incarcerated person that comes out of prison? Are they supposed to get it too, or is this just specifically for the natives, correct?
No, it's not just for the natives. The IWF is for anybody that enters the Montana justice system, prison system. So it doesn't matter your color, because the thing about it, when you go in prison, all you have is the blues and the same thing everybody else has. So in that aspect, from those terms, we don't look at the color of your skin, or we don't look at that. We look at we just everything's taken away, so you got nothing, and all you got is that communication with the creator God, or you're trying to find yourself. But the IWF is for everybody that enters the prison systems, both men
Well,
and
as a private institution myself, I don't see people coming out being educated as well and being revamped and trying to get their GED, or making ways, or them actually reaching out to companies or people who can actually do that as well to sustain a population that comes out, let it be smaller, whichever, so they don't return, right? So I see this too in my professional life, and I don't see where they're making the appropriations to actually have people stay out of prison. And if these programs are being manipulated to steal that money, then there's a real problem, and we need to understand it more. So thanks again. So can you continue on kind of, you said there was a case and it was fulfilled, correct?
Yes.
It's already been done. What
And that
happened in that case?
and that's the result of this, the audit of the IWF. And
Okay.
what we
Okay.
found in the IWF is Josh Rackey made sure that the Cascade County Detention Center kept their numbers out of this audit. So what we're trying to get is the Cascade County Detention Center, under the control of Jesse Slaughter, an audit of that IWF fund, because they had the prison until 2021 when they got rid of it, so that they can house federal inmates. So in 2020, what we're trying to get from 2007 to 2021 is what we're trying to get at the Cascade County Detention Center, their numbers of what they've actually took in revenue from the IWF there. So Josh Rackey cried around and threw a fit because he's been a part of this whole scam here for a very long time, and he's the one that got the numbers of the plea deals. That's why we have incarcerated the 2% here in the United States of wrongful convictions, is because of Rackey and him and his crew doing this to the people. But they also make sure that they don't have this IWF fund, so that way they continue to go back through that revolving door, so.
Right.
So what?
So is that a non for profit?
What's that?
Is it a non for profit?
The
No,
The IWF?
no, it's just the fund
people know, how does it get? Yeah, so people know, how does it get funded? Because if it was that, then we would be able to have public record, wouldn't we? If it was a non for profit or somewhere where they're funneling that money, right?
I mean, it sounds like it's a government managed fund or grant, but all of the money that goes into it is non-taxpayer dollars. So it's either fees or fines from the jail, anything that's purchased there, and then it looks like donations are allowed too. Is that right, Josh?
Oh, well, how it's generated is through the phone system,
Phones.
when the family communicate, and then the canteen. Canteen is the biggest one, is where it's generated from. So you have people that work for the Montana Correctional Enterprise, run by Gail Butler. So when they buy canteen, a percentage from the canteen that they spend for the canteen goes into that fund, and then the rest goes to MC.
What's a canteen? I'm sorry, I'm ignorant.
It's where you buy like food and shampoo, hygiene, clothes. It's like the store inside the prison for inmates.
Okay.
So you're saying that what you're trying to get right now, and it sounds like there's now some court authority helping you to do this, but you're trying to get an audit of the IWF from 2007 to 2021, right?
Yes. And the
So
pieces
what?
what was that?
Yeah. So I guess, what do you think you would find in that audit? Like, where do you think they're spending that money?
They would probably be spent. What we discovered is that, like, the hygiene kits that were supposed to be used out of taxpayer dollars to give to inmates, they use the IWF, for that thing, is to pay for the indigent packets. And so what we were trying to figure out is, well, if the state is divvying up the money for those indigent packets out of House Bill 2, then where is that money going if they're using the IWF fund to fund those indigent packets? And so that's the thing that we're looking at, is the state budget through House Bill 2, Section D, Section F, and Section B, and that has to deal with corrections, which is 2/3 of the state's budget. So what we're looking at is, where is that money that the state is giving to the Department of Correction and the sheriffs, and where is it going if they're using the trust fund through the IWF to buy those things that they're requesting through House Bill 2? And that's what
Well, I'm learning.
was they were found guilty of using funds that were in the state budget, and they were using IWF funds to pay for what the state was already giving them.
So this was something that was ruled in a court by a judge,
Yes.
or okay.
That's what I was just looking for. But everything I got for you when I start doing that. So when I meet up with you at some time, I'll give you what you need.
Sounds good.
See.
Yeah,
So
I'm unfamiliar with House Bill 2.
well, so that's the main funding bill, Kevin. So they really put everything in there. But what it sounds like you're saying, Josh, is that they request, like the Sheriff's Association is requesting money from House Bill 2, and a lot of it, I was sort of surprised. 2/3 of it of our state budget or general fund goes into the Department of Corrections. But what you're saying is they will request these things, but then ultimately they use the funds from the IWF to purchase them. So then there's a question about where that general fund money actually goes.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question. I can't wait to find out.
We're trying to get it.
So when do they have to give you that information or that audit for that time period? Like, is there a specific due date that they need to abide by?
No, because this was a thing they already did. Was they already did the due date here on 2022. But what we discovered is that they weren't providing these benefits to the guys that were getting out. So on when was it? July 23rd, at the Criminal Justice Oversight Council is when I addressed that with the Barry Usher and Jimmy Patelis, who's the head of the probation and parole, and let them know what was going on. Um, if you, I did give you that information, but if you go back and watch that video, it's on July 23rd, 2025, criminal oversight, and 11:32 is a timestamp to see, and then the work session part of it is where they're going after the director. So hopefully pretty soon we'll be getting some answers in regards to uh, what we found. And what we did was we submitted uh, our numbers. We submitted the financial report of what they were actually taking out the from 2007 to 2018, or no, well, back to 2007. That's as far as we can go back, but we broke it all down to them in the numbers of each year, how much they were getting from the IWF, and then what they were actually paying out to the guys. So there's a question of that $6 million from the Eloise Cabell that went into this fund, and then the actual uh, general fund from House Bill 2, the money that went into there, where is that money at? So those are the two big questions that we're trying to get is, the taxpayer dollars, where
Right.
is all that money that they're stealing from the taxpayers? So, uh, yeah, so I submitted this in the Legislative Audit Committee on September 19, 2025. And the timestamp would be 1637 is when I introduced those documents.
So quick, sort of follow up question: since you've presented at both of these legislative committees, I guess how receptive were the different legislators on those committees, and do you see them being able to help address the problem or at least bring more attention to it? I guess what's the intention behind um, uh, going up in front of these committees?
Well, Barry Usher, Patelis, Richie, the Regier family, they're all interested and they want the same answers to those questions. So I believe that they're doing their magic on that to find out what's been going on. So if you guys remember when Jason Ellsworth was found in violation of the ethics, in regards to those contracts, the vote that they voted on, everybody that voted to keep him in, those are the people that throughout the course going back to 2007 are the ones who had their hands in the cookie jar on the IWF fund. So if you go back to that, I can't remember the date of that, but you'll be able to see the people that voted. Those are the people that are behind, spending our slush fund. So it's a large group of people. So the work that we do, it took like 20 years to get to this point. But now we have our current administration all the way up to Trump, and here at the Capitol with Matt Regier, Barry Usher, Richie. They're the ones that, and Fuller, Braxton Mitchell. These are people that are actually wanting to help the people and restore this fund. So that's kind of where we stepped in and helped them with the election process, because we found out that that's where we had to go in order to get this resolved.
Right.
And are you still in contact with these legislators today? Are you still corresponding?
Yes, and Congressman Troy Downing, Randy Pinocchi, just a whole bunch of people that I ran into in my work trying to get the word out to the people that, the DOC was not only ripping off the family of those incarcerated, but every single taxpayer within the state of Montana through the Department of Correction, because they're taking taxpayer money and they're not using it for what they're saying they're using it for. So that's the thing is, they victimize the entire state of Montana just, so that they can be in these positions, hold that power, and have their tentacles on the people's money. And not only that, but to incarcerate the people so that they can bring that revenue up, so that they can live those lavish lifestyles. So, and that's who we're going up against. And these are billionaires, millionaires. But, what I found out is that, if you have the truth, then that's all you need.
Well, if you watched our last show, we were just talking about stacking the charges, so people will just plead in and out, and they get really nervous and scared when you put 26 felonies against you and 3 other felonies for another gentleman, and they want you to plead down to the lessers and go through this whole system. And like you said, we're the leader. Cascade County is the leader in wrongful prosecutions. I mean, that's on paper. And I had said this in the Cascade Effect too. I don't think there's not a news station in this state who's challenged them and done the press's job.
Yep.
And done it efficiently. And that's kind of sad. And keeping up on them. I know the names of the legislators that you were giving me, and those are good people as far as I've read, to the point where I'm at to be corresponding with. But Tony, you got anything? It's like,
no, I think this is just sort of crazy, like the ability, and I think this is probably how a lot of things end up working in government, is that you sort of have the ability to spend money in different ways without the full accountability that's actually demanded here. I think this one's rather disappointing because either, Josh, to your point, they're either robbing from the taxpayers or they're robbing from the inmates who essentially contributed to this fund in the first place.
Yes.
So seems, I don't know, fraud is a term that sort of comes to mind here. But I'd just be very curious about how they're actually spending this money, like what they're justifying expense wise that actually fits within, because this is really supposed to be for when inmates actually leave prison, right?
Yeah.
And so it really shouldn't be used in the prison system. It should be all after the fact.
Yep.
After they've served.
Yeah, and I'm trying to picture this slush fund where they could just write checks to everybody when they're leaving. It's not hard, and that well, I mean, look at everything else that's been touched, our Social Security, everything else. It hurts more when it's in, a state like Montana, and it's rampant. I would wonder how many other prisons do we have in the state of Montana, and are they run by the sheriffs as well? And do they have this type of a program too?
Yes. Each correctional institution, they generate funds through the canteen and the phone systems there. And I actually found that case number for you. It's DA 23-0162, and that's out of the Supreme Court of Montana. And it's Robert Rose, and he was the one.
Can you say the code again? Case number? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just writing it down.
What case is that? Is that the
with the IWF. That's Robert
Okay.
Rose who wrote that, and we dealt with the stuff out here, the campaign and everything, the committees. But one thing that Rob Rose told me to do, that if somebody ever came forward, some white person ever come forward and try to shut it down, if something ever happened to him, then to release the numbers to the committee and to the feds and everybody else that could do something. And so that's what I did on July 23rd, 2025, is when
Mm,
Mae Simmons is the one that tried to do that, tried to shut us down. And she's been working with Gail Butler, who is the administrator for the MCE that is controlling this fund. And, she's been doing a lot of things, with our advocacy work. And she's been infiltrating different pages for people, their families incarcerated. And so she's the one that made us produce the numbers at the Legislative Audit Committee on September 19, 2025. So that's why we submitted these
mm,
documents. And if you notice that Ed Staffman, he's the one that resigned real fast because he was the legislator that was behind a lot of this stuff, that was using this fund and had his tentacles in other areas that he should have.
right. So, because I mean, what you're saying is a lot of this was just recent. Like you went to the Criminal Oversight Committee July 3rd of this year. And just a few months ago, September 19th, you testified in front of the Legislative Audit Committee. I mean, I know they're still sort of meeting, but not like they were actually in session earlier this year. But our next legislative session will be in 2027. So elections next year. Do you think this stuff will be able to come to light as people like Racky and Slaughter are seeking re-election?
Well, that's the thing is, I'm going to be on the election trail with them. I'm going to be going out to the people and share, just like how they did to you guys, tried to shut you guys down. I've been following them to try to stop them, because that's what they're doing to the people. And then after that, when people ask me, hey, what happened? And I tell them, and, the damage is done, but people are starting to wake up about those two clowns. Um, yeah, we're going to be out there exposing them because this goes way back to 2007 again, when his dad covered up a scandal in prison. So there's a lot of facets to, the corruption that's within the Department of Corrections and the sheriff.
Can you say that again or elaborate? Because, and I'm trying to even think here I don't remember when Racky even started in the county prosecutor's office or then when he was actually appointed or elected. But Slaughter, when was he elected? That was like 2016,
Two,
Yeah,
2018?
I want to say 18,
yeah,
but I mean that can be. Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I think it was 2018 because he ran for re-election in 2022, and so running again in
Yeah.
2026.
Well, I was running in 16, and he was on the ballot. So wasn't it 16?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're spitballing.
So
Just looking it up.
would that mean, Josh? Then, like multiple elected sheriffs have been responsible for this?
yes,
Okay, going as far back as we know to 2007.
yes.
What sort of a little bit of a transition here. What do you guys end up like? Do you right now, aside from a lot of this investigative work, what roles do you guys have in helping inmates who do come out of the prison system? Do you try and
Right
connect with them, give them any sort of mentorship, anything like that?
here, this is a perfect example. Is we actually help them with, finding places. We actually help them with finding employment, clothes, food, phones, just whatever they need. We're picking up where the DOC said that they're going to do this, but we take care of it, because we've been through it. We know what needs to happen, and we have so many connections on the streets. So if you think about that movie Fight Club, that's how the incarceration is around here in Montana. There are people and their family. So we have a huge network. We don't rely on social media. So we just word of mouth, and people want to help out churches, and we're just connecting the community and these families together so that way we can try to see what we could do to help guys when they get out. And if they end up going down the road of bullshit, we'll just pull them back and make them come correct. And if we gotta get crazy, then that's just how we have to do it. But the goal is to make sure that they're successful, that they're aligned with the creator, and that if they have any problems, give us a call. And we'll see what we could do. And if you're the problem, then we'll come make sure that you come correct. So but it's a task. It's a 24-hour thing. Problems happen. A lot of just a lot of bullshit. But
So how
yeah,
do they get a hold of you then? So let me get this straight. So you just work within the community on your own time, your own dime,
yeah,
and you just, if somebody's in crisis, you just hear by word of mouth and you just go to them.
yeah. People just reach out to me. So
Right on,
we're
right
pretty
on.
even in Missoula, Billings, Kalispell. We got guys there that call me up like, hey man, we got a problem. And then I end up driving up there, and it's just, somebody's having an episode that they don't know how to really handle, and they want to fight and flight. They just want to go back to prison. But, we get there and we show them, hey, you're going to be okay. This is what we need to do. Sometimes I'll stay there for a couple of days, or sometimes it's over and back, but we try to do what we can, and we're not made of money, but you know the creator provides, so that's just how we've been pretty blessed, and
That was my next question. How are you funded? How do you?
just everybody everybody steps up, family, the brothers that are out here, that are doing good, the brothers in the pre-release, just everybody, the churches, so, and that's where we
The
started
Lord will
with the
provide.
churches. What's that?
The Lord will provide.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I love it.
So,
I love it. Yeah. Well, I'm humbled. I don't. Thank you.
and a lot of weed. Yeah.
Well, I hope it's homegrown
I
because
guess
you
you
can't
need.
afford that shit. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, right on. Hmm. Right on.
It's work, but it's needed. Somebody has to do it, and it's for the people. And that's the biggest thing. I wake up every day and I pray like, hey, come on, God, be easy on me. I'll do it. And some days are good, some days are crazy, and some days are like, what the fuck just happened? But at the end of the day, we're able to save some people and get them back on track. And that's the goal, is to make sure that people can be successful and be restored to their family. That's it. Families need their fathers. That's what we're trying to do, is get them back to the families intact, or, with the right tools needed to deal with, whatever life throws at you.
Yeah, and Great Falls. What would you say? I mean, we probably covered it already. What would you say is the biggest need when you see them come out? What, and where can they go? Can they, maybe they'll listen to this and maybe they can get there. I don't have very much faith in our shelters and stuff like that, so I don't know. I don't really, although they do wonderful jobs too. I don't have any. Unfortunately, I have to say that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can you know, give them some hope if they hear this or they see this or whichever, when they come out.
Well, what we're doing is we're actually working on that whole process right now through the funding sources and investors. And so what I'm doing is, that day I woke up, I'm putting together a lot of stuff, so that way when I go in to meet with these investors, I can have a plan A, B, C, and D, so that way we can figure out how we can house guys, how we can get them lined up with employment prior to them getting out. Those are the biggest things, is housing and employment. But what the PNP here, they want you to get employment or get a house first and then employment. It's, they're ass backwards. That's who we got running our state, is, a lot of people confused, don't know if they're a man or a woman, but, at the same time, they make these policies, and they can't even figure them out when it's common sense. So we just pick up the slack, and we just want to make sure that anybody that comes out of prison, doesn't matter skin color, whatever, we just want to make sure you're good. That's the whole goal of Prayer Warriors Tribal Council.
Yeah, right on.
What I guess what are some of those major barriers when seeking both employment and housing? Is it the stigma that's associated with being formerly incarcerated? Is it just not having the upfront money for a down payment or security deposit for apartments? Like what are the major challenges?
The major challenge is the money aspect, because you got guys coming out of prison that, are only provided with, a bus ticket and a meal, and, they don't have nothing. Leroy came out 30 years later, and, he didn't have nothing. And so then, we finally were able to connect, and now, we're working on getting him established. We're working on, his job, because 30 years being locked up, coming out to this world, it's just shock, because you're in there sitting there in limbo while the world continues to move forward, and you come out with all this new technology and all this stuff. And he thought that, by the time he got out, that there'll be flying cars,
You're
back then.
close. You're close. I mean, you're close. I mean, they're gonna have that in the next 10 years. You know what I mean, brother? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like right the hell there. So
Leroy,
you
I
weren't
mean,
wrong. It's a Jetson shit now, and here you are. Hats off that
Leroy,
you're still here.
I got a couple of questions for you. Since I think we could learn a lot from your experience. What did those first couple of days out of what was that experience like? Those first couple of days out of prison, and then what did it look like for that first month?
It was pretty stressful, wondering where I was going to get a support and going to the PNP and here there's, like going there and here they're looking at me like, hey, you're supposed to get all of this put together when they were supposed to help me put it together. Coming out here, I didn't have nothing. I didn't have no motel room. Everything was they were pointing fingers at each other. They were supposed to give me a motel room. They were supposed to give me clothes. I didn't have nothing. I come out here with nothing. And then here after a while, my family, helped me out for the for the first month, you know. And I ran into a bunch of problems with all that. It's a big mess out here in the community as well, coming out here to a bunch of dysfunctional, a dysfunctional community, that I see that have been created here amongst the homeless, amongst the drug addicts and all that, the stuff that's been pushed with inside of the last few years that I never expected. I never seen homeless here before. I never seen a lot of this stuff that's going on that's happening today. And to go to the shelter and finally have somebody help me get a job, because I did get my GED while I was in prison, and here getting out here, that helped me out a lot. So me with my cousin here, he's the one that was the support with me getting, my home put together and all that. And he went through and he helped me get a job and all that. Now I work at 4Bs and all that. And here I went there, and it's related to, something I'm lined up with the work with inside of like doing kitchen stuff, busting tables and washing dishes and all that. But on the other behalf of it, when I was first starting out, it was very stressful, and it's like, hopeless. And I was hopeless at first, because all people that came at me, were using, the people that, the cops were watching me, I was being watched, I was being followed, just being monitored all the way around, and to meet these deadlines that they set on you, they have high expectations that you cannot reach them goals, because there's no way that I could get a house inside of the time that they want me to get a house. There's no time I could get, I'm lucky that I have had what I had with inside of the community of coming out here to be with my relation, because he did help me get that job at first, getting a house and all that, working on all that. And everybody else doesn't have that, and I see them fail, and I'm just, and they need it. Then here when we're helping them out, there's a lot of people that are in their ears, you know, a lot of their family that's using, you know, and that's the biggest, you know, I mean, obstacle that I came across is that there's a lot of people out here inside of the community that use and all that. And you know, I mean, seeing your old friends from when you were growing up on the streets and all that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it just really didn't help with where their situations were at, you know, and here was
It
created
sounds,
out here. It seems like, you know, I
yeah,
mean, the Democrats created that, you know, and they did a lot of,
yeah, and it sounds like it's one of those situations where, like, you're lucky if you have some sort of support system that can help you out, just
yeah,
because there really isn't much out in the community that's widely known. I mean, what you guys are doing now is hopefully helping push things in the right direction. But you know, the stuff from the IWF or even just from our local governments to be able to make sure that someone who's been incarcerated for 30 years knows how to navigate through society, especially one that honestly it sounds like you were sort of surprised to come into as well. Like you weren't quite expecting the type of community that you saw with Great Falls now.
no, I didn't. I just, you know, what I mean, I'm really truly blessed by having this man here, you know, what I mean, by my side because he's the one that, you know, what I mean, made it happen for me. I didn't do nothing. I couldn't do nothing on my own because I didn't know nothing. He's the one that, you know, what I mean, guided me through all these obstacles. I mean, it's a mess out here, especially with the side of the probation control and all that, and the way these cops are running around here doing stuff, you know. I've seen where, you know what I mean, where they broke my cousin's arm and all that, breaking other people's arms out here, and, you know, I had to crazy stuff out here. You know what I mean? It's just corruption, you know. I see, you know what I mean? I see, you know what I mean, that people were criminals, but I never thought I'd come out to the point where, you know what I mean, the people with inside the government were, you know what I mean, out to channel to, you know. It's really crazy.
Well, they preach all of these programs to rehabilitate. I've talked to one in particular legislator who also is like me, who says, "Well, we don't have a good educational or transfer to society program. They preach that they do, and
Oh,
we just take them at their word, right? We see all of the stuff on ads or whatever else, or the propaganda Tony likes to call it, the bullshit propaganda that's always out there shoving it down our faces. And he's the propaganda sniff hound. So you want to know it, he's it right there. He hates it. But I mean, people do buy into it, and we go about our daily lives, and we just kind of do it. But I've been thinking about this for like 3 years, 4 years. A matter of fact, even with my wife, we're trying to get a foundation started to help that transition and to help those who are coming from even juvie and juvenile who have set them up to fail. And a lot of these ones are young. They're not just older people going in here. We have a lot of youth going in here, and they have no transfer program coming out that could be truly successful. I mean, we can say, well, they got to want it. Okay, but they might want it, but is it there for them to actually grab?
well,
And I think this is bringing it to light that it's not. And that's important for everybody to really sit back and take another look at this.
So the juvenile detention center. So that's another topic.
Mm-hmm. I figured I'd open up that can of worms. Did you hear the can?
Yeah, I was
Right?
like, man, because I just found some documents that I got to get to you guys. But what they were doing, this was in 2020 or 2019, is they were housing adult offenders at Pine Hills, and they weren't supposed to be doing that. And the one that tried to look like she was fighting for that was Susan Weber. She spoke up about it, but she was another one that was behind, making sure that adults were at the Pine Hills facility. And that's
What
another
is
one.
what is the Pine Hills facility? Can you give a little synopsis real quick?
The Pine Hills is like where they call it the troubled youth. It's like the prison for youth, the ones they can't control. Till they're 25, you could be there till, or no, 18. They changed it to 18, but they were trying to make it to where you're 25. So what that is that's
Yeesh.
another place where nobody ever talks about.
No, never heard of it.
Place that they do a lot of exploiting, tax dollars is through those youth facilities, the detention centers. And where it started at was in 96 on the Blackfeet Reservation by Francis Onstead. And it was for the sole purpose to incarcerate our native population because of the monies and the kickbacks and the non-cash contributions that the programs would get. And so when she got her tentacles in, she ensured that our native youth will enter the justice system, and that started in '96. And later on, she was found guilty, went to prison for embezzling money, 4.6 million, and there was a bunch of them. And, what these guys, and it's another whole episode to get into that. But it has to do with the gerrymander process that took place in 2010 and 2020. And that's why we have the problems we have today with the SNAP, with the Medicaid and all that stuff, because that's what we sent out. That's what we started out in the first place was the prayer warriors, was to stop them from gerrymandering. Because what they did was they didn't apply our native identity to the census in 2010 and 2020. And it costed our reservations 160 million in money for services, and so that's why we have the problem. So if you ever see that article with Donovan Hawk holding up the 77,000 people in the Democratic Party, they had this event in Beef, and they were holding signs that 77,000 people would be affected without SNAP benefit. And these are places that knew that that was going to happen, but now they're jumping on those positions, and they secured employment for them and their families, the ones who engaged in that gerrymandering. And if you look at the food sovereignty program, like in Ronan by Patrick Uwalki and Regina, those are the two people that were part of the whole gerrymander process. Like I said, that's a whole different area, and it's all documented on videos of what we tried to do. But we were able to. I put it on public comment with Ed Staffman that he gave me the gavel, but I played the recording on Mark. Gosh, I can't remember. It's up there somewhere. But I played the recording of the Department of Corrections Director Reginald Michael. We were on a phone call with the census, Mike Cooney, and these NGOs at the time trying to get our tribal affiliated applied to the 2020 census. And so I recorded that phone call and put it on the public comment. So yeah, they're fucked. They should have never done it. And they will.
Badass. Yeah,
we will definitely need to follow
man.
up with that, because I know that there's a lot of details we're discussing there in a follow-up interview. But before we get on with or wrap up here, there's
this one right here.
That's the recording.
That's where I got the gavel with Ed Staffman, and that's the IWF account.
I think I've seen the gavel one where they tried getting you to stop multiple things. So I think
I just recently made these, and this is going to be covering the campaign for the midterms. And what we're exposing is the Democratic Party, Josh Rackey, Jesse Slaughter, of what they did, and this is who we represent, is all the tribes here in Montana within the Department of Corrections.
Right on.
We're passing this out to everybody to let them know, give them the truth, and so they can see for themselves. And because it's their information, and everybody in Montana can jump on board, like the Eloise Cabell, and go after these bad actors that hold these positions. And we do have the accounting, the faces with the names of who has all our money, who spent it, how they spent it. So unlike the Eloise Cabell suit, is we have the numbers, and these belong to the people. So we're just distributing them for the people so that they can get what they're owed by the Department of Corrections.
Yeah, right on.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, no better way to end it from there. I think this leaves open a lot more conversations we should have. And for folks who are hearing Josh and Leroy's story for the first time, I think you'll be hearing more about this, especially with the IWF and the upcoming legislative session. So, Josh, Leroy, thanks for joining us.